On the eve of Rita and Henry's wedding, Rita discovers that Henry has been unfaithful to her with her best friend, Benita. Rita was sitting in her room when her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and saw that it was Benita, her best friend. "Hey, Benita, what's up?" Rita answered, expecting to hear the usual pre-wedding jitters. But instead of a cheerful greeting, Rita heard sobs on the other end of the line. "Rita, I need to tell you something. Something terrible has happened," Benita said, her voice shaking. Rita's heart started racing. "What is it, Benita? What's happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. Benita took a deep breath before answering. "Henry and we've been seeing each other. I'm so sorry, Rita. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." Rita's mind went blank for a moment. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her fiancé and her best friend betraying her like this. It felt like a nightmare. "I don't know what to say," Rita finally managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "How could you do this, Benita? How could you both do this to me?" "I'm so sorry, Rita. I know I've messed up. But please, can we talk about this?" "Can we work it out?" Benita pleaded. Rita hung up the phone without another word, feeling numb and devastated. She knew that she couldn't marry Henry now, not after what he had done. Her heart was shattered, and she didn't know how she would ever be able to trust anyone again. Henry tried calling and texting Rita, but she didn't respond to any of his messages. He had no idea what had happened, but he knew that something was wrong. Finally, he drove to Rita's house and found her sitting alone in her room, staring at the wall. She didn't even look up when he entered. "Please, Rita, talk to me. Tell me what's happened," Henry begged, falling to his knees beside her. Rita turned to look at him, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "How could you do this, Henry? How could you betray me like this with my best friend of all people?" Henry didn't know what to say. He felt guilty and ashamed, knowing that he had hurt the woman he loved more than anything. "I'm so sorry, Rita. I know I've messed up, but please, give me a chance to make it right. I love you so much," he pleaded. Rita didn't say anything for a long time. She just sat there, staring at Henry, trying to make sense of what had happened. Finally, she spoke. "I can't marry you, Henry. Not after this. I need time to think, time to heal. I need to be alone." Henry felt his heart shatter into a million pieces. He knew that he had messed up, but he had never imagined that Rita would call off the wedding. "Please, Rita, don't do this." "I'll do anything to make it right." "Just give me another chance," he pleaded, his voice breaking. But Rita just shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I can't, Henry. Not right now. Maybe someday, but not now." "Wait, Rita, let's talk about this," he said. But Rita had heard enough. "There's nothing left to say, Henry. You broke my heart and you betrayed my trust," she said as she walked out the door. Henry felt like his world had come crashing down. He loved Rita more than anything, and the thought of losing her was unbearable. He knew he had to find a way to make things right. Over the next few weeks, Henry did everything he could think of to win back Rita's love. He sent her flowers, wrote her love letters, and even showed up at her office with her favorite coffee. But Rita was still hurting, and she wasn't ready to forgive him just yet. "I need some time," Henry did. "He need he told him. Henry understood and respected her wishes, but he was determined to prove his devotion to her. "I'll do whatever it takes, Rita. Just tell me what you need from me," he said. Rita looked at him with tear-filled eyes. "I need you to show me that you're worthy of my love. I need to trust you again," she said. Henry nodded, knowing that he had a long road ahead of him, but he was willing to do whatever it takes to win back Rita's heart. Henry sat alone in his apartment, feeling lost and alone. He missed Rita more than anything, and he didn't know how to move on from his mistake. Just then, his phone rang. It was Benita, Rita's former best friend and the woman he had cheated with. Henry felt a pang of guilt as he answered the call. "Henry, we need to talk," Benita said, her voice shaking. Henry knew what she was going to say, but he didn't want to hear it. "Benita, I don't think it's a good idea for us to talk," he said. But Benita was persistent. "Henry, I need to apologize for what I did. I know I hurt you and Rita, and I can't live with the guilt anymore," she said. Henry sighed. He knew that Benita was right, and that he needed to face his mistakes head-on. "Okay, Benita. Let's talk," he said. They met up at a cafe, and Benita tearfully apologized for her actions. Henry listened, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. He knew that Benita had betrayed both him and Rita, and he didn't know if he could ever forgive her. But as he looked into her tear-filled eyes, Henry felt a twinge of compassion. He knew what it was like to be filled with regret and guilt, and he didn't want Benita to suffer the same way he had. "Benita, I appreciate your apology, but I don't know if I can forgive you just yet," he said. Benita nodded, understanding. "I know, Henry, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I just wanted to make things right," she said. Henry nodded, feeling a sense of closure. He knew that he still had a long way to go to win back Rita's love, but he was glad that he could start by making things right with Benita. As Henry walked out of the cafe, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could make things right with Rita too. But he knew that it wouldn't be easy. He had hurt her deeply, and it would take more than just an apology to win back her trust and love. Henry decided to take things slow. He started by sending Rita a simple text message, asking her how she was doing. To his surprise, she responded almost immediately. "I'm fine," she wrote back. "Why do you ask?" Henry took a deep breath before replying. "I just wanted to check in on you. I miss you, Rita, and I'm sorry for everything that I've done." He waited anxiously for her response, his heart pounding in his chest. A few minutes passed before Rita finally replied. "I miss you too, Henry, but I don't know if I can trust you again," she wrote. Henry felt a lump form in his throat. He knew that he had hurt Rita deeply, and that he didn't try to for forgiveness. But he couldn't give up on her. He loved her too much. "Please, Rita, give me a chance to make things right. I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust and love," he wrote back. There was a long pause before Rita responded. Henry held his breath, hoping against hope that she would give him another chance. "Okay, Henry, we can talk. But I'm not making any promises," she wrote. Henry felt a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for them to be together again. He set up a time to meet Rita at a park, and spent the next few days preparing for their meeting. When the day finally arrived, Henry arrived at the park early, hoping to get a chance to clear his head before meeting Rita. He walked around the park, taking in the sights and sounds of nature, and tried to calm his racing thoughts. As he sat on a bench, lost in thought, he suddenly heard a familiar voice. "Henry?" He looked up and saw Rita standing in front of him, looking more beautiful than ever. Henry felt a lump form in his throat as he stood up to greet her. "Rita, hi. You look beautiful," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Rita smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thanks, Henry. So, what did you want to talk about?" Henry took a deep breath before speaking. "I just wanted to apologize for everything that I've done. I know that I hurt you, and I'm sorry." Rita looked at him, her expression softening slightly. "I appreciate your apology, Henry, but I don't know if I can trust you again. You hurt me deeply, and I'm not sure if I can ever forgive you." Henry nodded, feeling a sense of regret wash over him. "I understand, Rita, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But please, give me a chance to make things right. I love you, Rita, and I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust and love." Rita looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of deception. Henry held his breath, hoping against hope that she would give him another chance. Rita took a deep breath and looked Henry in the eyes. "Henry, I'm sorry, but I can't give you another chance. You hurt me too much, and I don't think I can trust you again," she said, her voice firm. Henry felt his heart sink. He had hoped that Rita would forgive him, but he knew that he didn't try to have her forgiveness. "I understand, Rita. I'll respect your decision," his voice barely above a whisper. Rita nodded, her eyes filled with sadness. "I hope you find happiness, Henry. But it won't be with me," she said before turning around and walking away. Henry watched her go, feeling a mix of sadness and regret. He knew that he had made a mistake, and that he had to live with the consequences. But he also knew that he couldn't give up on himself. He had to work on becoming a better person, so that he wouldn't hurt anyone else in the future. With a heavy heart, Henry left the park and went home. He spent the next few days reflecting on his actions and trying to figure out how to move forward. He knew that it wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to become a better person and make amends for his mistakes. Over time, Henry began to work on himself. He sought out therapy to deal with his issues and started to focus on his career and personal growth. He also made a vow to never hurt anyone the way he had hurt Rita, and to always be honest and open with his partners. Benita had been consumed with guilt ever since she slept with Henry, and she knew that she had to confess to Rita about what had happened. She had tried to tell her friends several times, but each time she tried, she lost her nerve. But as the days passed, Benita's guilt only grew stronger, and she knew that she couldn't keep this secret any longer. One day, Benita called Rita and asked to meet her at a coffee shop. When they met, Benita took a deep breath and said, "Rita, there's something I need to tell you. I slept with Henry." Rita's eyes widened in shock and hurt. "What?" she asked, her voice trembling. "A few weeks ago." "I'm so sorry, Rita. I don't know what came over me. I know I've betrayed you in the worst possible way," Benita said, her voice filled with regret. Rita felt a wave of pain wash over her as she realized that the man she loved had been unfaithful to her with her best friend. "How could you do this to me, Benita? How could you betray our friendship like this?" Rita asked, tears streaming down her face. "I don't have any excuses, Rita. I'm so sorry. But there's something else." "I'm pregnant," Benita said, her voice barely above a whisper. Rita's eyes widened in shock. "What? Henry's baby?" she asked, her voice laced with disbelief. Benita nodded, tears streaming down her own face. "I don't know what to do. Rita, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." Rita felt like her whole world had just crumbled around her. Not only had Henry betrayed her with her best friend, but now he had also fathered a child with Benita. She didn't know how she was going to move on from this, but she knew that she had to find a way. Rita wiped away her tears and took a deep breath. "I need some time to think about this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how I'm going to forgive either of you for what you've done, but I know that I can't make any decisions right now. I need some time to process everything." Benita nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I understand, Rita. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to be honest with you and try to make things right." Rita took another deep breath and tried to compose herself. "I appreciate your honesty, Benita, and I know that you're sorry. But right now, I just need some time to myself. I can't think straight with all of this going on." Benita nodded and stood up from the table. "I understand, Rita. Just know that I'm here for you if you need anything, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right." Rita forced a small smile and stood up as well. "Thank you, Benita. I'll be in touch." As Benita walked away, Rita sat down at the table and put her head in her hands. She didn't know how she was going to move on from this, but she knew that she had to find a way. She had to think about what was best for herself and for her future, and she couldn't let Henry or Benita control her decisions. She had to take control of her own life and find a way to move forward, no matter how difficult it might be. Days turned into weeks, and Rita found herself in a constant state of turmoil. She couldn't stop thinking about what had happened, and every time she thought about Henry and Benita, her heart felt heavy with pain and betrayal. She tried to distract herself by throwing herself into work and spending time with other friends, but nothing seemed to help. One day, she received a call from Henry. Her heart raced as she answered the phone, unsure of what he might say. "Rita, can we talk?" Henry said, his voice filled with regret. Rita took a deep breath and tried to steady herself. "What do you want to talk about?" she asked, her voice laced with anger. "I just wanted to apologize. I know that I messed up, and I don't know how to make it right, but I want you to know that I'm sorry, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your forgiveness," Henry said, his voice pleading. Rita didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to scream at him and tell him that he could never make things right, but another part of her wanted to hear him out, to see if he truly was sorry and willing to change. "I don't know, Henry. This is all so complicated. I need some time to think," Rita said, her voice trembling. "I understand. Just know that I'm here for you, no matter what. and I'll do whatever it takes to make things right," Henry said, his voice filled with sincerity. Rita hung up the phone and took a deep breath. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that she couldn't keep running from her feelings. She had to face them head-on and figure out what she wanted for her own life, regardless of what anyone else wanted or expected of her. After a few weeks had passed since Benita's confession, Rita went to the doctor for a routine checkup. She had been feeling off for a while and wanted to make sure everything was okay, but when the doctor told her the news, her heart skipped a beat. "Rita, congratulations! You're pregnant," the doctor said with a smile. Rita's mind went blank. She couldn't believe it. She was pregnant with Henry's child, too. How could this be happening? She knew she still had feelings for him, but after what had happened with Benita, she didn't know if she could forgive him. Over the next few days, Rita wrestled with her emotions. She didn't know how she felt about Henry anymore. On one hand, she still loved him and wanted to be with him, but on the other hand, he had cheated on her with her best friend. And now, with the news of her pregnancy, things had become even more complicated. One day, Henry showed up at Rita's door looking contrite. "Rita, I know I messed up. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Can we talk?" he asked, his eyes pleading with her. Rita felt a mix of anger, hurt, and confusion. She didn't know if she was ready to talk to him yet, but she also knew that she couldn't avoid him forever. She took a deep breath and said, "Fine, come in." They sat down in the living room, and Henry looked at her with remorseful eyes. "I know I messed up, Rita. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I love you, and I want to make things right," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Rita felt a wave of emotions wash over her. She still loved him too, but she didn't know if she could forgive him for what he had done. "Henry, I don't know how I feel about you anymore. You cheated on me with my best friend. How can I ever trust you again?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I know I messed up, Rita, but please give me a chance to make it up to you. We can raise this child together. We can make things work," Henry said, his eyes pleading with her. Rita didn't know what to say. On one hand, she still loved him and wanted to be with him. But on the other hand, she didn't know if she could ever trust him again. And with the news of her pregnancy, things had become even more complicated. She needed time to think and sort out her feelings, but she also knew that she couldn't keep running away from this. She had to face it head-on and make a decision about what was best for her and her baby. Rita sat on her couch, staring blankly at the wall. Her mind was racing with thoughts about the situation she found herself in. Not only had Henry cheated on her with her best friend Benita, but now both of them were pregnant with his child. She didn't know how to feel about it all. Part of her was angry and hurt, but another part of her felt guilty for still loving Henry despite everything he had done. After hours of internal struggle, Rita picked up her phone and dialed Henry's number. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Rita," he said, his voice cautious. "Henry, we need to talk," Rita said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Of course. What's on your mind?" he asked. Rita took a deep breath before continuing. "Benita told me that she's pregnant with your child," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Henry hesitated before responding. "She is. I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier. I just didn't know how to bring it up." Rita felt a pang of hurt and anger. "And what about me, Henry? Do you have anything to say about the fact that I'm also pregnant with your child?" Henry was silent for a few moments before responding. "What?" Rita felt a wave of sadness wash over her. "Yes, Henry, I am, and I don't know how to feel about any of this. I still love you, but I'm so hurt and angry that you could do this to me." Henry sighed. "Rita, I know I messed up. I don't know what came over me, but I still love you too. And I want to make things right. We can figure this out together. We can raise our child and Benita's child together. I'll do whatever it takes." Rita didn't know what to say. She wanted to believe him, to believe that they could make things work. But the hurt and betrayal she felt were still fresh, and she didn't know if she could trust him again. "I need some time to think, Henry," she finally said. "I need to figure out what's best for me and for our children, but we'll talk again soon." Henry agreed, and they hung up the phone. Rita sat back on her couch, feeling more confused than ever. She didn't know how she was going to navigate this situation, but she knew that she had to find a way to make it work, for the sake of her children and herself.